especially early on with Cody, was like, I got to learn to not play. I got to learn to leave space for everybody. You know, stylistically, what they're looking for is let the song breathe, let the song speak. And those are all things that you don't learn in jazz school as much as you do like playing in rock bands and playing with country.
What's going on, everybody? Ken, Bob, James, good to see everybody. Oh, I've got this set to small font, so this is my blind time. Chantel, Chrissy, good to see you. If I miss your name, it's literally because I can't see your name. Sarah, good to see everybody. Ken, are you relaxing in Florida right now?
Sir, no? Well, I'm relaxing, but I'm here.
Not relaxing. David's actually, I guess we should introduce David. This is everyone. This is David Colvin.
How you doing?
Drummer phenom and incredibly good guy. So I was excited whenever we met. We were out together earlier this year for a few shows, and we got to chatting, and I was like, hey, you should come talk to everybody. That would be a lot of fun. So David's actually going to be in Florida next week, Ken. He's going to be playing, or this week. Did you say this week?
This weekend, yeah. Orlando, I believe Jacksonville, and Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, nice. Where are you, Ken?
I'm in Orlando.
Ooh.
So Jacksonville's about 2 hours, I think. Can you hold on a second? Someone's ringing my doorbell. Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead, man. So very cool. Well, this is, if you've never been on a guest artist call with us, we do these monthly, and next month we have the drummer from Cody Johnson. Is that correct, Grant? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yes. And then we did book The Good Doctor for August, right?
Correct.
Dr. Azar.
Yes.
So if you have ever wondered about heart rate and drumming, she does all these in-depth studies with very large rock stars and tracks their hearts while they're playing so that she can look at caloric burn, et cetera, and so forth. So we'll get to nerd out with her in August.
I'll have to log on for that one. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, David, interesting enough, Pete Parada lives up the street. He was the drummer for The Offspring for like 13 years. And so we got together and I did some calculations based upon tempo of the song, their set list, his weight, his height, all that stuff, and figured out his caloric burn rate. And what I figured out was that the caloric burn rate for a drummer doing an intense show, hitting hard with higher BPMs, in a punk rock setting, he had the caloric burn rate of an Olympic soccer player. Whenever they were out there. Yeah. But Olympic soccer players will only play like 1, maybe 2 matches a week, whereas, a drummer, once they hit the road, it's 5, 6, 7 nights a week that they're doing this thing, which is why. Go ahead.
The 3 days, I feel it. The third night's like, whoa, you're dragging a little bit.
Yeah, and he would joke. He said, "Yeah, I come home and my wife fusses at me because I'm always 10 pounds lighter after a tour." And he said, "It's not like I'm not eating burgers and hot dogs and beer." He said, "I am. I'm really trying to keep it on." And he said, "I just can't keep the weight on."
Wow.
But all of that to say, Dr. Azar, her findings are very similar. So we weren't that far off. So
I'd be interested in the breathing. Sometimes I notice my breathing, and I have to think like, okay, breathe, and then you're breathing in tempo, sort of. And I wonder if she's studying that too.
I'm gonna ask her when she's here, because when I'm playing, one of the things I notice I do at times is I'll hold my breath, and I don't like doing that. But when I notice I do that, I try to take real big breaths, to compensate for that. So, but anyway, I guess everybody, we should tell you, this is a guest artist call. I do these because I want my inner 14-year-old self to be happy. And when I was 14, I would have wanted to talk to the drummers that were out touring and playing in groups. And so David is a phenomenal drummer. He's got his master's in jazz studies. He does not play jazz now, currently, on his gig. Yeah, that he's on. He was in the rock group, the Heartless Bastards. You were a founding member of that group, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And how long you been with Cody Jinks?
6, 7 years now. I guess 7. 2016.
Yeah.
Late July.
And for those of you that don't know Cody Jinks is one of the largest independent. He's still independent, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Country music artist out there. Kind of part of the scene that is out of Texas, I guess. That's happening out there, which is a really cool scene. And there's a lot of great players that I've gotten to meet. So David also plays open-handed, which is very interesting because we have quite a few open-handed players that are here, and we have that discussion a lot. So we can talk about that and the troubles that happen with that. So if you got a question, you can put them in the chat, or you can just actually raise your hand on Zoom. However you do that, Grant can tell you how to do that. I don't know how to. I still haven't figured out. I've been using Zoom for years.
Hey, Stephen.
What's up?
Sorry to interrupt. We do have one submitted question. I forgot to tell you earlier. And James also just asked me, and he says he has a couple questions for David about open-handed playing as well. So James, if you're near your mic, you can go ahead.
Yeah, let's just kick it off.
I'm here. Hey, Stephen. Hey, David.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Thank you for joining us today.
Not a problem.
Couple of quick questions. I'm dabbling with open-handed playing, and I find if you do a single stroke fill down the kit, I find it easier to start with the right hand. And what I usually do to get back to landing on one is I'll play a double on the last right. Does that make sense, or how do you handle that situation?
Yeah. Well, I never got to dabble because I am fully left-handed and left-sided. So I was I had a teacher actually teach me right-footed. And so once I got further along with that, I didn't want to reverse my feet, even though I think my left foot is still stronger after all the exercises I've done with my right foot. So I just was forced to kind of, I naturally lead left, and I just get I'm trying to show you, just get my elbow up in the air, to reach under it. But I have been working a lot, to lead right, and I noticed too, sometimes you kind of paint yourself into a corner with a fill. You've gone for something. You're at the floor tom. It came out a little different than you intended, and then you got to have a double in there because you're planning on coming out with your right hand anyway. So I do practice a lot of paradiddles around the kit for that reason. So I mean, any way that works best for you, I think go for it. I practice it both ways because I want to be as ambidextrous as I can.
Right. Well, I wish I had started that way. I don't know if this old dog can learn a new trick, but I'm having fun.
Sometimes I wish I started the other way.
Right. One other quick question.
I gotta follow up on that. You said you practice paradiddles around the kit, David. Do you practice just the standard inversion, or do you kind of practice reverse paradiddles, inverted paradiddles?
I guess in a sense I practice all the inversions because I practice them starting on different points of the beat, which would be essentially would that be the same thing, I guess? For sure. So I actually hear them all the same, but they're sort of starting and ending in different parts of the beat of the measure. So
right. And for anybody that if you play open-handed, a regular paradiddle, right, left, left, right, left, left. But if we reverse that, it's right, left, left, right, left, because we have the doubles at the front, and we can also invert that where the doubles or the diddle is in the middle. So we have a right, left, right, left, right. But they're all paradiddles. Like he was saying, it's just where you start on the beat.
This podcast is brought to you by the Drum Better Daily program. That's actually my online drum school that I've run now for 12 plus years. Not only have I been playing the drums professionally since the age of 15, I've been teaching since the age of 18. Matter of fact, I talked to one of my first student a few days ago. I actually called him to see if he could sub a gig out for me. Daniel, love you, man. And he's still playing. He's still doing it on a pro level. I would love to have you go check it out at stevensdrumshed.com. You can find a link to that in the show notes or video description, whichever platform you're watching it on. But it truly is a community of like-minded drummers where we are striving to just be the best that we can be at the drums. In addition to over 70 pre-recorded drum courses, there's also a tech talk area where we talk about everything technology related as it pertains to the drums, e-kits, recording, doing videos, all of that stuff. There are forums where you can hang out with the other students as well. We do 2 live video student calls every week that you can join if you'd like to. We do guest artist calls monthly, and I'll even make you a personalized lesson plan if that's what you need. Yes, we talk about the nuts and bolts of drumming. Yes, I give you exercises, but we also talk a lot about how to practice more efficiently, how to practice better, and how to get more out of your practice time. I know you're just like me. You're busy, you're being pulled by work, by family, by friends, by other responsibilities. Whenever you practice, you really want to see gains and have it be productive. That is what we focus on in the Drum Better Daily program. I'll have to say personally, it's been really cool because some of these students I've worked with for over 12 years, we started running drum camps last year in 2022, and I got to meet some of them in person for the first time. Those drum camps have been selling out. They've been just blowing my mind with how much fun they are and how great a time it is to bring the community together in person. A community that was started online and has been going online strong now for over 12 years. I'd love to have you be a part of it.
I just had one other really quick question. In the song "Must Be the Whiskey," is that a shuffle that you're playing?
Oh, that's a good question. It is. It's a shuffle feel in the tune. A lot of times in country music, you have an acoustic guitar player that's chunking along right in that same frequency of the hi-hat. And in the studio, to sort of clean up everything, I'm just playing quarter notes in the hi-hat because the acoustic player was doing a swing feel. And it just got it to lock the song in a little bit better. We have a lot of guitar players in the band, so it sometimes helps when I play shuffles just to play quarter notes because all that chunking in the guitars are in that hi-hat range, and it can get real kind of messy in that frequency.
Well,
so
that
I'm playing a
explains
shuffle,
it.
and I got a swing feel, but it's just quarter notes in the hi-hat.
Yeah, it has an absolute swing feel, but I wasn't hearing the shuffle on the hi-hat, so that's why I asked the question, and now I understand it. Well, thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
and I think there's a few other tunes. All It Costs Me was everything. That one is the same way. I think there's a couple other tunes that I've done that on.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much.
When I do it in the studio, everybody's like, "Oh, that's perfect. Do that."
Okay.
It's a lot of times with that many players in the band, it's like playing less can really make it groove better.
Yeah, y'all do have a lot of players. So you've got Cody, who plays acoustic, correct?
Right.
And then you've got a lead guitar player. You have is there another acoustic player?
Yes. Yeah, there's and he plays lead. Sometimes they do dueling leads sometimes, Jake. So Jake and Chris are electric. And Jake switches to acoustic sometimes. Cody switches between electric and acoustic. And then their keyboard player also plays acoustic guitar at times. So there are tunes where maybe there's 4 people playing guitar plus a steel guitar. So five guitars if you want to count that. So those are probably the tunes I'm playing quarter notes on.
It's just get out of the way of all the stringed strumming instruments.
Yeah.
So
let's do it.
Since we're on this topic, and I know we got other questions too, but I kind of don't want to miss the chance to expound on this. So you've got a master's degree in jazz studies.
Yes.
I've got a bachelor's in jazz studies, so I guess I'm not as jazzy as David, but I'm 2 years behind him. And so I always find it's funny, my jazz instructor, because I was there for a year and a half or 3 semesters, a year and a half, and I got a gig on Bourbon Street playing in a top 40 band, and I was going to take that as full time, and so I quit for 3 years and then came back. But he saw me in the hallway after he had found out I got the gig. And he said, "Hey, I heard you got that gig down on Bourbon." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Man, that's amazing." And then he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, don't let any of these jazzers talk down to you about taking that gig." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Well, and he said, "Because they're gonna, but you just remember, while they're flipping burgers over at Burger King, you're playing music."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay." So there is kind of a stigma in the, I guess, legit orchestral world, the jazz world, college, that country music is somewhat a simple art form, therefore it's beneath what they should be learning, and therefore it's not worth their time to dive into it. But what I've found over the years, and my wife and I just started the Ken Burns documentary last night, actually, on country music.
Cool.
It's it's really long. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but we were going to bed and she's like, so why haven't we seen drums yet? And I'm like, okay, the 1930s. Let me tell you about the drum set, hun. Let's start with Baby Doll. And she was like asleep in like 3 seconds. It was great.
Yeah.
She really enjoyed that. So as a jazz player, a trained jazz player that then went into a rock band, it's very similar to me. I guess I've spent my whole career avoiding playing jazz since I graduated, not on purpose. And now you're in a country, a very what I would consider a very country group. It's very country, as far as country music goes. How did you tackle coming into country music? Did you have any of that mindset of like, oh, this is a simple art form, I really don't need to spend too much time on it? And were there certain players that you looked to begin to learn the nuances of the genre? Because once you dive into it, it actually is a very nuanced genre.
Yeah. I come at it, I guess I was surprised I got the call, number one. I always loved rock and roll. Like, that's what I grew up with. There's some baggage with the jazz thing, from jazz players and from non-jazz players when you're in a rock and roll group and you have this jazz degree. I don't usually tell everybody, I guess I just have, but because sometimes when you get into a rock band and they automatically kind of like, oh, he's going to play too much, he's going to talk over my, there's a insecurity when you're like, yeah, I went to school for music, when most people in the rock and roll bands are proud that they didn't go to school for music and they're self-taught. So there's a different way to talk about music with, in a rock band, is when you get in a jazz band, you can say all the technical jargon and everybody understands, but you have to learn to speak about music in a different way, so that everybody understands you. But I think I always had the rock and roll vocabulary, and I did assume that, and that the country beats are kind of similar. The beats themselves are very similar to rock and roll, but then there's a jazz element to it where people trade solos, they go around. I guess I find a little more knowledge about 1-4-5. You say that in a original rock band, they might be like, huh? I just put my hand here and strum away. So I've been learning. I've learned a lot. And the challenges of the country thing are different than the jazz thing, in that it's almost, especially early on with Cody, was like, I got to learn to not play. I got to learn to leave space for everybody, because stylistically what they're looking for is completely. It's not about me expressing myself with the, check this lick out or interacting with soloists. I mean, it is there's a little bit of that, but it's kind of like stay out of the way, let the song breathe, let the song speak. And those are all things that you don't learn in jazz school as much as you do like playing in rock bands and playing with country bands, which is a lot about the words, with Cody especially, a lot about the words, a lot of, don't step on the vocalist. These are things that I guess I didn't play with too many jazz vocalists that held me accountable. I didn't, like a Sarah Vaughan. I think Roy Haynes talks about Sarah Vaughan, really keeping out of her way. And I didn't learn that until, I'm still learning it, but I didn't have to experience it until really Cody. He likes to fill in the ends of phrases, and I have to stay out of it. I have to be careful of my drum fills that I would normally just automatically put at the end of an 8-bar phrase going into the chorus, but he really likes to fill that with words. So trying to get a little bit of expression in there and lead the band in, but not step on this vocal is really challenging.
Yeah.
I haven't had any jazz guys get on me about playing. I think they're. In fact, I just went to a jam here, a jazz jam, and the bass player's like, "You tour, with a country band? That's awesome. They fly you around." Like, yeah, and he's like, "Whoa." So, I mean, I guess maybe there's some people that would get down about it, but they're not. I don't talk to them. No, I don't know them. I don't know too many of them.
I heard an interview with Ken Burns when he was trying to die, because he did the documentary on jazz music, that is so, popular or famous, I guess popular with like 3 people that, are like me and like to nerd out on it. It's funny how jazz and country music were both very much culturally driven. So there is some crossover with the cultures when you start looking at them. But it's what he was saying in his interview years ago when I listened to it, and I'm finally watching the documentary he made. But he said, I was having a really hard time understanding the hook with country music. Like, where did we get people to sink their teeth into country music? Because he said it on the surface, it's so simple. He said it's such a simple art form that it's very hard. It was very hard for me to understand where I'm supposed to, wrap this whole long, documentary around. And then he said, finally, I figured it out, that it's the stories. He said, country music is about the lyrics and the story that those lyrics are telling, and everything is built around that. The instrumentation, the things that they're playing. And he said they're very relatable to things that could have happened to you yesterday, or it might be how you're feeling today, but it's a very relatable and familiar story to the fans that listen to it.
Yeah.
Which kind of pushes to your point, it's about the lyrics, it's about the story.
Right. And that's a different way, in the jazz thing, it was about expressing yourself and interacting with your fellow players and creating, I guess, excitement and interest that way. And this is about, about Cody. This is about his name on the banner, and I got to make sure, and his fans are staring at him, and singing every word. So they're not cheering for my drum fills or my drum solos. So it's serving that. And you hear about, like, I always heard people say you got to serve the song, you got to serve, but I never really, I guess in the rock and the Heartless Bastards it was about that, but that was a much louder thing, and we were sort of composing together, and I don't know. This is a much more, it's about him, it's about the songs, it's about the front guy, and we're supporting that, and there's a beauty and a challenge in it that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's so, and David and I got to talk. It's funny, whenever you go out and you play with different groups, you always notice the things that they get to do that you don't get to do on your gig, maybe, or maybe I do. Maybe that's just what I do. And so one of the things for the gig I'm playing is it's a Southern rock group. So we play with a lot of country acts, but they very much will tell you over and over, we are a rock group. And so the show is a rock show. It's they have me hitting very hard. It's big drums, big wide open parts that leave space for the vocals, but not a lot, and to quote Wes, our lead singer, he said, the answer on this gig is never 30-second notes, which I think is a great, way of him saying, like, get out of the way. If you're going to play a fill, make it simple to the point, and then let's get back to the song, But I play very hard on that gig.
You guys are rocking.
Yeah, that's by their request. I would think I was playing hard, and then they would say it's not hard enough. Finally, whenever I trashed one head in one show, I was like, hey, it's too hard now. We're playing.
Yeah.
But David gets to play with a lot of nuance to what they're doing. We play with nuance, but it's bigger. It's a wider range of, like, we're really soft now, but when we're loud, we're super loud, and it's most of the time pretty rocking. Whereas David, really, there's some textures he gets to play with that I really liked. You play with a click live, but just visually, right? You just kind of use it to guide you.
Yeah, it's just the tempo app. I think that's what it's called on your. I think it's Frozen Ape Tempo. You get in the App Store, and I just use it for count offs, and I look at it just for intros. When the groove is being set up, that's when the band is probably most volatile tempo wise as a group, and so to get through the intro, once Cody starts singing, I really do my best to not look at that ever again the rest of the song, and then just go with him and try to, we do the dance, sort of try to hold it down, but not too much, so that he has some flexibility if he wants to push it or pull it back. But just set up that groove. I am looking at it.
Right. And it's funny because we were out with Miles plays with Cody Johnson. And he and I were talking about what he gets to do on his gig, which is he plays a lot. He gets to play a lot because it's like this Garth Brooks. I don't know. I don't want to say Garth Brooks, but there's that type of energy to that show.
Okay. Yeah.
For their show, and so he gets a lot of drums, he gets to do all the stuff, right? Yeah. And we were talking, but it was funny because he's like, "Yeah, man, last night I was trying to really play some dynamic press rolls and like bring some dynamic things in there because I was watching you the night before and you were playing real dynamically, and I realized, and it was funny how we were both watching the other one being like, man, he got to play all the notes tonight, and he was watching being like, oh man, he used dynamics, I got to do that, it's just kind of funny, the gig and what you need for that gig, and were there any players that you looked to learn the country catalog better? Were there any specific players that you were?
Oh man, I've always liked 70s country, is sort of what I gravitate towards. It's a lot of the players then, Kenny Buttrey is he's a big influence. Or I'd like to, it's like I'm always shooting for something that like he's doing now. It has to be different because Cody phrases differently than a lot of the people that Kenny Buttrey played with. Like, he did some stuff with, he's on Harvest with Neil Young, but he was also like a Nashville session guy, A-lister. So when he wasn't he crossed over and did some rock things with Dylan and Nashville Skyline, JJ Cale. But then he also was doing all the session stuff, and they had a R&B sort of influence back then where they were trying to be like some of the maybe groovier like Motown guys, and they were trying to throw that in, and every session, like if you listen to some of those sessions that he's on, they get a little funky. They're trying to, they're pushing like the sort of funk aspect back in those like traditional country records. I think he's on the Chris Christopherson records, but it's really cool, and I love the rhythmic interplay that they were able to interject and still support the song. So.
That's a funny. I'm looking at this, trying to pull up the song it was the other day. The artist was Jerry Reed. That I was listening to, and I think it was Coco Joe. That's the name of the song. But there was a time in that 70s country music where there was some funk coming over, and you can hear it on a couple of Haggard tunes. And I always save them when I find them, and because it's not a ton of it, but it's like, oh man, this is country funk, And Coco Joe by Jerry Reed was another one. It's just such a different feel than the other stuff that was happening.
Yeah, you talk about grass is greener. When I listen to that stuff, I'm like, wow, why can't we just make every song like this? But yeah, the what was I gonna say? You mentioned Jerry Reed. It made me think of an artist I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but oh yeah, I was talking about Waylon. Some of that Waylon stuff. It's 4 on the floor, but they got all these little pickups and swinging 16ths and some of those things that just make them like kind of a little funky, Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the guy that I love, and Bob, we're about to get to you, man. I know your arm's probably tired, Bob. You've been raising it for quite a while. Mitch Marine and they've heard me talk about him before with Dwight Yoakam. He's been with Dwight for so many years that I always, and we got to open for them at a festival, I don't know, a few months back. And I was really looking forward to it because I wanted to spend the entire night sitting there out front watching Mitch play what he does, which to me is a very authentic, a lot of Dwight's songs, they'll have a very authentic, like, okay, this is the vibe we're going for. You can almost trace it back to like, this is where they were coming from with that, and they're bringing it, here. But like his idea of a flat tire shuffle, they're probably tired of hearing me talk about this one, but when I dissected it, it's just like he made the flat tire shuffle feel slower than it was because he put the jazz ride cymbal pattern on the hi-hat like this. It's inside the pocket of a clown, right? And I thought that was genius. I'm like, never would I thought to raise the hi-hat like you were playing a jazz shuffle. It slows it down. It feels fast, but it also feels kind of slower, you know?
Yeah. And that's, you mentioned that kind of thing in the swing feel in country, and it's the same in jazz too. Like every guy, every band has this different swing feel. Some people put that you know, that the eighth note close to the next beat. Some people almost make it straight, and you know, with Cody you can make it real wide and still, you know, make it swing. It's but sometimes it can feel like it's ever slowing down because it's like, you know, like real straight, or can feel
right.
It's not usually super tight in country. Maybe with some Haggard stuff, I have to go back and listen to stuff. But you know, most of the time it's got this. I love that variation on swing feels.
Yeah. Oh, it's and that's, to me, that's what country music has been about over the years. Ever since I moved to Nashville, I guess 15, 16 years ago. That's the nuances of a particular artist, and why does this train beat sound slightly different than this train beat? And if you're playing a Johnny Cash style train beat, what does that sound like versus, you know, a Waylon or somebody else? Is there a difference, you know? And to my ear, once you start picking up the nuances, it's like, oh, there is a little bit of a difference here. Like they had their own thing with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mitch Marine is an example of one of the ones that I look at and just get to, you know, I geeked out at the show because I was like, I'm going to go listen to him play this, you know, shuffle in whatever this song is. And it was so good. It was like so great.
Yeah.
We've
talked a lot about Richie Albright, you know, the Waylon drummer in the studio, and that like sort of he does like a half swing thing sometimes, you know. So does Kenny Buttrey, you know, where it's like this beat where it's kind of like it's not a full swing 16th. It's sort of like a half swung 16th feel. It's really cool.
Yeah, you know, and there's a lot of styles of music that you can listen to some styles of reggae, and it's like, okay, this has a swing to it, but this isn't your traditional swing. Yeah. But you can't call it not swung, but you also can't call it straight, you know? And it's, when I lived in New Orleans, that was the thing, was like figuring out where the cracks were, because those cracks feel different than the cracks in reggae music and how that feels. And it's different than, you know, a country type of a swing that's not making it quite all the way there, you know?
Yeah. Zigaboo, you know, his is like, can be real wide and it's awesome. But, you know, like, I think that all those thoughts about swing feel that I've had to do in the jazz world definitely helped me, you know, come into the country thing. And there's not as much of that in the rock world these days, you know. I guess maybe there was when they were doing more blues tunes, like ZZ Top's era, you know, type stuff. But now most everybody's straight or 6/8. But like this swing thing, you know, country has a lot of that still. So
yeah,
you know,
very
jazz
cool.
thing probably benefits.
Bob, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, Steven.
How are you, man?
Hey, Bob.
Doing good. Hey, guys. Hey, David.
How you doing?
It's a blast to hear two pros talking, you know, about drums. I mean, you guys are really drum nerds just like we are. I think it's cool.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is the only group where you could be like, thanks. Your nerddom is very much appreciated.
You, yes.
I got a real mundane question. It's about your floor tom.
Sure.
Does it have a muffler on the reso head, or am I just seeing things?
Are you talking about the Gretsch down here on the floor, or the one up on the stack on the
yellow
wall
one
there?
on the floor there with your stick bag on it?
Yeah, it's an 1980 Gretsch bop kit, because I'm in a small room. That's all I have room for. But yeah, it's got a muffler on both the toms on top and bottom.
I've never seen that before. That's very cool. I mean, you probably don't use them, but I think it's a funny design. Really, it's
I sometimes do when I'm recording. You know, it gets a different tone, and it's quick to experiment instead of like getting out the towels and all that. You know, you can just like twist it.
Sure. There's two more contraptions that can fall apart at any moment. So It's
Yeah.
exciting.
They've held on since '80. They don't rattle either, like some of the Ludwigs can so far.
Do you play mostly
I was going to
Gretsch?
say, have you taken them on the road with those muffles in them?
These, no, I just got these like right before the pandemic hit. I've taken them out only a few times. They're mostly what I play on at home. I love them. I love the sound of them, and I can't wait to. I've recorded stuff at home, but I've never taken them out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a Gretsch kit or is that just the tom?
Yeah, no, it's a full. The snare is new. It's a broadcaster, but it's
okay, yeah.
18, 12, 14. Yeah, 1980. So.
Well, since
Reverb
Bob
special.
brought it up, I guess this is a good time to talk. Do you have, who are you playing? What gear are you playing for all the gear nerds that are listening?
With Cody?
Yeah.
It's I think it's a 2017 Ludwig Legacy.
It's a sweet setup. It's very nice.
Maple poplar maple. Just the straight recreation of the 60s shell and champagne sparkle. So it's a 22 by 14, then it's a 9 by 13 rack and a 16 by 16 floor tom, and just a standard new Black Beauty snare. It's like Steven plays, I think.
Yep.
How about cymbals? I know it's a very personal question, but can you discuss cymbals?
Of course. Yeah, I have a deal with Istanbul Agap, and so I use on the road just two 20-inch medium crashes, traditional medium crashes, and I got a 22-inch Mantra ride. And then for the hi-hats, I like thin hi-hats, and they're 15s, but they're two top cymbals. The bottom is a top of a Mantra pair, and the top is a top cymbal of a jazz special edition jazz hi-hat pair.
Cool.
Because they don't make them as light as I like them. I like those old Zildjians that, and everyone wants to make like a 1,200 gram bottom cymbal with 900 gram top cymbal. I just want two 900 gram cymbals.
Just very
basically.
And that's funny because I'm like, when did y'all start making the bottom hats so much thicker?
Why
and
is
why?
That? I don't know.
Yeah, we got a old Gretsch, a 50. What year is that? 56 or 57, Grant?
Somewhere around there. I don't know.
Yeah, we got an old one.
Exactly.
It's got like a 28-inch kick. We've still got to rehab it, but it came with an old set of 12-inch. I think they were 1930s. They were late 30s or early 40s. 12-inch hi-hat, and they're super thin, and they're really cool sounding. But now you get those huge thick cymbals.
Right. Yeah, the Agap, I have the 30th anniversary cymbals up here now, but I have a 15-inch pair of hi-hats, and they're thin on both cymbals, so I use them a lot for recording. Actually, they're quite amazing.
Yeah, and everybody, just because it says hi-hat bottom doesn't mean it has to be a hi-hat bottom, everybody. So I've got setups of hi-hats that are crash cymbals that sound really, really cool because they're like he said, they're very thin. I have an EFX, a Zildjian FX cymbal that has holes in it that sounds amazing with a K-light top hat on the bottom and that EFX sitting on the top, and it's almost a maraca feel. And you would think the holes get in your way or would catch your stick or your stick would miss hits, but they don't. They never, the number of times, I played it for a couple of years, the number of times my stick got caught was like once or something.
Well designed.
You really have to be stabbing it. Oh, David. Hold up, we're losing you. 1 second, David.
It's me.
We glitched for a second. Okay, repeat whatever you just said.
Okay. I was just making a joke. They probably spent years of R&D making sure those holes were exactly placed, so that your stick just misses it every time.
It's
for 90% of the users.
I would love to see the R&D for that.
Yeah, one of my favorite pairs of hi-hats is I found two 16-inch old 60s Zildjian crashes, and put the slightly heavier one on the bottom, and it's only slightly heavier, but that's a great pair from the studio as well.
Yeah, one of the crashes I use out with the Steel Woods is it's the one over here. It's a Renaissance ride cymbal, 22-inch Renaissance ride cymbal.
Yeah.
And it crashes. It's actually really uncontrollable as a ride cymbal. Once she starts yelling at you, it's like it won't calm down until you just stop hitting it, you know? And so,
Right.
but as a crash, you know, it's incredible. So yeah, just because you're, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the way companies have marketed it, it's like, this is a crash, this is a ride. But you buy an old Zildjian from the 60s, it's just a cymbal.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I'm not sure they even, delineated like whether this is a crash or ride. This is just a thick 18 or a thin 18. I like cymbals that can do everything. And I was, for a long time with Cody, just using two 22s that crashed well. But, you know, when you get really loud, though, it gets hard to get the definition in the ride. But my favorite way to play is with two big cymbals that have some definition on the ride and just crash really great. You know, a cymbal should do everything. in my ideal world.
In your ideal little world where David exists, it's like, no, this is how that happens.
Right.
Well, you
Awesome.
can't go without talking about pedals, though.
Pedals.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just a DW 5000 turbo, not accelerator. I'm a turbo guy. Because I learned heel down. You know, I've always been a heel down player to start, and with the rock and roll, with the Heartless Bastards, is when I really was like, oh man, I'd really gotta get this going. So I've you know, had about 16 years of working on my heel up, but so I like the turbo because it just feels good when you got the heel down with the softer tunes.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, and thanks for the question.
And then Grant, you got a couple submitted questions too.
Yeah, we have one submitted question from Sarah, and then Sean messaged me a question, and then Chantel also has a question in the chat.
And then if you ask the question, you are also totally allowed to unmute and talk to David. He doesn't bite very often, so he probably will be pretty nice to you.
All right. So this question's from Sarah. She says, how would you advise someone with no past experience playing drum set live, no contacts in the industry, and no musically inclined friends to go about finding other musicians with? Caveat, go to open mic nights or hang around music stores or clubs are not acceptable answers.
Wow.
Just ruined your answer.
So how do you get started like in that position? Right?
Yeah,
That's
more or
the
less.
question. Well, it's pretty hard to get started playing music without going to check music out. Because, you know, we depend on people coming out for live and seeing live music. So I think you know, if you want to get out and play, is that the question, that you want to get out and play, but you don't have any outlets to get out and play at this point?
Yeah, well, I think she's just wanting to avoid just the like, we'll get out and meet people, or you know,
Yeah,
we just gotta go to the gym.
And I get that. Yeah, what is the actual way to meet people? And that's always an awkward. It was always an awkward thing for me. Networking is something that's not with people like Steven, you know. My camera's reversed. He's over there. But yeah, you know, there's some people that are very easy to talk to, and other people are just like, you know, it's hard to fake it when you're not clicking. But I think showing your face at live music events, and then sometimes people will just come and talk to you. And that happened to me at the Jazz Jam, where I wasn't planning on playing. I hadn't played jazz live in front of people for like 12 years, but I've been practicing it a lot and listening to it. And then like I was like, I'm not gonna play tonight. You know, and then the guy just came around and was like, you guys play, you know, and the leader of the jam, and I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, you're next, you know. So it just found me because I went out and put myself in a position where I was just watching live and you might get inspired to go home and work on something that way, and then, you know, people might find you if you start small like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually got a really good example that doesn't have to do with going to open jams and just going out. to play with people is there's a guy that was here. We did a shoot yesterday for a video that was actually really fun. It was Sweetwater wanted to do a video with us. So I said, well, if you can send me 2 drum sets, I'm pretty sure I can give one away, which seems like a very easy task anyway. So I felt like I was setting the bar pretty low for myself. But I said, yeah, I have an idea. So we did a video. We had 2 college percussion students come in. It was the first one to put the drum set together wins it. And then we actually, our goal was to give them all these other challenges to do besides putting the drum set together that made it extremely difficult. We successfully made them take 6 hours to put a drum set together. And I felt pretty proud about that. But there's a guy, Eddie, and Eddie reached out to me. I don't even know how Eddie first found me. Maybe email, maybe, I think Instagram. I do think so. And he's from California. He's a retired firefighter. He's got disability, but he's about my age and not a disability like you would notice. It's not like he's missing a leg or an arm or something. He just, whatever happened, I don't know. So he's not doing firefighting anymore. He's here, and he now spends his time drumming, and he wanted to meet people. So he's very actively finding the musicians that live around here, and he's reaching out to them. And he's asking questions. He's saying, hey, can I buy you coffee? Can I buy you lunch? Can I, and so we go out, and after the 3rd ask, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll meet you for coffee. He's a great guy. He's a fun guy, and he had some great questions. And hey, do you have anybody I could take a lesson from around here? I said, sure. So I passed his name, to somebody else. And then he said, if there's ever anything I can come just like sit and watch or help with, I'll just come hang out just to hang. So we needed someone to watch cameras yesterday. And Eddie was the first one that came to mind. I'm like, hey, Eddie's up the street. He said he'd come over anytime. And it's just been him following up with me in not in a persistent but not annoying way. And he was here yesterday doing the stuff, and I'm sure we'll have him back at some point, but that's a really good example of specifically kind of targeting a person in a good way. Let's not do this in a weird way.
Right.
But hey, I really like that person's music. I like the gigs they're playing. I would like to meet them. And then you go about trying, I find ways to meet that person and make it not be a weird event, That's why, like, anytime I go out with an artist, I don't always meet the other groups that I'm out with. Sometimes you feel like you won't gel with them or whatever, but especially if there's a player that I respect, or I hear him play, or I see their setup and I'm like, this seems like a person I would get along with. David was one of them. And so I had an introductory question before and it was about his Ludwig that he's got out there,
Right.
And it's like, you got to make it as natural as possible. But David's right. You have to get out and meet people. And you have to go where they are. And then once you meet them, either come back, because they're going to notice out of this bar of 100 people or 50 people, there's this girl that keeps coming back to see the band that's a drummer, because she told me they were a drummer, they're going to notice these things. And especially if you say, hey, I'd love to grab lunch with you sometime and pick your brain, or that's how I got all my first gigs.
Find a band or a player that you really like, and just go to their gigs as often as you can, and then they'll start to notice you, especially at a smaller venue. But a good icebreaker is hey, where are you playing next? I really dig this, and then they'll be like, well, thanks for coming, and then that might break the ice. Or people make fun of people who talk gear all the time, but man, talking gear is like a good icebreaker. It's a good way to get into other conversations, and I use it all the time. Plus, I love talking about, hey, what sticks you're using, or what's that? Where do you get that drum set? And then if you get to talk to a person, you don't have to do any more work than that. They'll just go off, and then you can just get to know them that way. So,
yeah, and I found, I don't know if you found it this way, David, but this is a good question, by the way, Sarah. I found it's very much understanding. Like, situational awareness is really, really important, and understanding why an interaction with another person went badly, and being able to go home and kind of deconstruct that situation so that the next time you have the opportunity to have an interaction with another person of that caliber, or that it goes better. And I spend tons of time doing this. I spend a lot of time. I was just talking about this with someone the other day, because when the Steelwoods last year were auditioning drummers, they'd gone through a lot of drummers, like a lot of them. And I knew that coming in. And so I actually went in not as concerned. I had spent all the time on the music. What kind of cymbals do I need? What's the sound? I had done my homework. But then you have to get on a bus with these guys and just go to another city. I never met them. We didn't have a rehearsal. So I got on the bus and I was pretty quiet my first day or two on the bus, because I was just watching. And I was trying, you know, not a creepy way. I wasn't like peeking in people's bunks or anything. But I was just kind of like trying to get the vibe. Okay, what's the vibe of this whole group? What's the vibe of the sound guy? What do they find funny? What do they find not funny? You know, what's an annoyance that I noticed that they mentioned? You know, slamming the door on the bus. That was one that was mentioned multiple times. I'm like, okay, they're very sensitive about that. You know, and so there's things that I would start to kind of venture on. I was just kind of taking my notes, like, okay, because I knew if I wanted the gig or didn't want the gig, whether I got it or not, came down to could they hang with me on the bus long enough that we could make music together, you know?
Man, you bring this up. This is like when I was kind of nervous for this Zoom. I didn't know, I've never done these before, you know, and I'm like, what am I going to talk about if he just says, okay, talk about something. You're making this very easy, by the way. But this was the biggest topic I could come up with. And a long time ago in Austin, there's a drummer named J.J. Johnson, played with John Mayer.
Yes.
Tedeschi Trucks. Great player. And he had come in, and I worked for a music school at that point, and he came in and gave a little talk, and everybody said, he didn't even play. All he talked about was, it's important to know how to hang with all kinds of people. And this is your point, like, you know, you have to take in everything, see how everybody is. I mean, when I first met Cody, they were recording a record, and I was coming down to be the session guy who's supposed to be, you know, play all the drum parts perfectly, and I'm a rock guy. And no one talked to me for like the first day, and I was like, what's going on, you know? And it ends up, they're very quiet, you know, at first. So but they kept me on, you know. I somehow navigated that and was observant enough, like you said, Stephen, to be like, okay, don't do that, you know. There's little cues here and there, but 95% of your time maybe on the road or in the studio is sitting around hanging out with people. And so if you're annoying, you know, it doesn't matter how good of a player you are. That's what's gonna matter most is like, are you a good hang? Are you chill to be around? You don't have to be talkative or whatever, but are you chill to be around? And it carries over to the music, because the first thing when you play music is you got to be listening.
Yeah, and
so it's the same thing.
They'll pick a drummer or another musician that is easier to be around and talk to and hang with before they will the guy that has or the girl that has all the chops.
Exactly.
As long as they and something I noticed that's interesting now that you brought it up, David and Sarah. Sorry, I know you got your hand up, but this is directly related to that. Something I caught on, and I've heard them mention a lot, was when I first got on with the Steelwoods, was I had heard them talk. I'd heard them just talking about the different drummers that had come out with them over the weeks. They had a run of it. There were a lot of players, and there were some funny stories. But they kept saying in reference to some of them, yeah, I mean, we could get what we needed out of him when we needed it, and we felt like he was coachable enough that we could get him there, but the personality wasn't. And I heard that over and over. Yeah, we felt like we could get him where we wanted it. You know, we could get out of him what we needed. And this thing, and I was like, oh, so they have a very specific thing that they're looking for here. And each player in the band has a very specific thing that they're listening for, I found. Yeah. And they're all very vocal about it. Tyler's more easygoing. They're very vocal about it. They're very sensitive to BPMs. At 1 BPM faster, I've got the band turning around going, hey, what's going on here? You know, and that was really important for me to hear, because after every show, I would come up and I'd be like, hey, So tonight, let's talk through tonight. You know, what happened that was, you know, you preferred, and what are some things I did? Where did I miss the mark? Where can I do better the next day? You know, and turns out that was actually really important to them, that I was presenting myself to be a coachable entity and wasn't a bad hang. You know, so yeah, it's just very interesting.
It's all about the hang. I mean, it's sort of like going. It's where you start to learning that is going out to clubs and trying to navigate and figuring out how you're going to meet people without being weird, like you said. And it's all about listening and observing. You can still be yourself and own who you are, but you know, but seeing what other people need all the time and being sensitive, that's what makes people want to be around you, you know. And you may see a band where you're like, how did that player get in that band? Like, they're barely hanging on there. Probably because they're an amazing hang, you know. They've been tight with the band leader for their whole lives. You know, it's something where, because that's what you're doing most of the time, is sitting around together. You know, in tight quarters.
Very tight quarters.
Yeah.
So what do you got? What do you got, Sarah? I know you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just thank you for all that. I mean, I definitely agree with what you're saying. I guess my issue at this point is having not, just sort of backtrack a little bit. My musical education was more of the classical musician bent, just kind of due to the instructors I had at my disposal in my school years. Then I got out of music for various reasons. One of which being I never wanted to be a classical musician. And they kept trying to put me in that box. Right. So now I'm like, I can't not do this anymore. I have to do it. And you know, it's just like playing in that vacuum. Like I can play the music at home all I want and, you know, get better and be great by myself at home. You know, at some point you need to get out there and like find some people. So having never been in the rock scene, so to speak, I'm having trouble even figuring out where to go. Like, and I don't know if it's just like, so I guess my question is more like, is a social media presence something that is kind of important now to kind of put yourself in groups or something so you even know where to hang out to go talk to people, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What kind of music do you listen to most, you know, like just recreationally? Is it
like alt rock and like indie electronic, that kind of thing?
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna show my age, but I was looking for the free paper, whatever that they have a list of gigs there in the back. And I don't know, I think they still have one here. I'm in Pittsburgh, they still have one. If and social media will have one for different clubs. If you can look around, when I go to record stores, I see posters, you know, and I'm always taking pictures of posters of what's coming in. It looks interesting. Maybe something, you know, if you go to see one of your favorite bands, maybe they come into town and it's a bigger gig. Who's opening for them? Maybe it's a local person, or and then start going to those clubs. And then maybe you just go to the club when you don't know what's going on and you hang around and maybe you stay for 5 minutes and because it's no good and you get out. Start, if you can, start showing your face around. That's what I did. I'm from Dayton, Ohio originally. So in Dayton, I was just going to the clubs, you know, as often as I could. You know, you don't have to stay late, or you don't have to, you know, you just have to show up. Maybe it's early on and then you split, and I don't know. Showing your face around, people will start to notice, like, hey, that person's always here, you know. And then one thing leads to another with the Heartless Bastards, because I started going to shows all the time, and then someone had heard that I studied music, and Dayton was slim pickings with musicians. And then someone was like, hey, I heard you're a drummer, you know. And the lead singer was of this band. It was a band called Sheezus, which is a really funny name. I love it. It was all girl punk band, but their drummer quit, and they were willing to sacrifice the all girl thing and have me, you know, because he needed a drummer so bad. And I was like, yes, because I was looking for a band to join, but I didn't know how to be like, hey, can I join your band, you know. but I'd been showing my face around, and someone told someone else, you know, like, that guy's the drummer, and then all of a sudden I was at band practice. So it, and then Erica was in that band, who was the lead singer of the Heartless Bastards. She was the bass player. So I'm rehearsing with these women, and then a year or two down the road, we're playing shows, and then Erica's like, I want to start my own project. Do you want to come and help me record my demo? I'm like, sure. And then she gets that going, and we start playing some shows with that. You know, one thing snowballs into the other. It's like, I don't even know how I got here. You know, and then when the Heartless Bastards took a hiatus, I started emailing people, and it ended up our manager was really good friends with Cody's manager. So then all of a sudden, I'm in a country band. I could have never planned it, you know, this way, but it was all because I was just showing my face around, and someone had heard, like, you know, if you let it slip that you're classically trained, someone may be like, oh, this person plays, you know, and they may need somebody, and then all of a sudden you're roped into something. Pretty cool. I don't know.
No, and that's how almost every story I've heard about music happens. Being available, so showing your face, but then also letting people know, hey, I'm a drummer. It's okay to call yourself that, by the way. I'm a drummer. I'm looking to play out. If you hear of anything, here's my number. Here's where you can find me. You know, and it's better to be a big fish in a small pond, in my book. So, you know, a lot of people say, well, it's a smaller town. I'm like, perfect. That's perfect, because you don't have much competition. I guarantee you there's not very many good drummers in your town. So great place to start. Let's make you the one that everybody wants to call. And so it's like, if you can make for yourself a goal every week of, okay, I'm going to do X thing that is related to me getting out and meeting other musicians or playing out. And that X thing can be like, I'm going to this show this week. I'm going to follow up with this person from this show. I've got a coffee booked with this person. I've got, you know, and then when you go to meet them, just ask them all about themselves, because everybody loves talking about themselves. Yeah, you know, go in with questions. You'll survive any dinner party ever if you just have people talk, and you'll leave and they'll be like, he was such a great hang, and all you did literally was sit there and listen to them talk about themselves, and they just love it, you know. But if you can make for yourself, like, I'm going to do this one thing towards getting me closer to my goal of playing out every week, and that can be a very small thing, like I found a local show, I found a, you know, advertisement for a drum circle, I found this online group, whatever that is, but it kind of is just like inching you towards that goal. And every time you meet people, you work into the conversation. Yeah, I'm a drummer, and I'm just kind of looking to meet other musicians and play out, and they're going to remember that, especially if you tell them over and over and over. And you know, pretty soon you'll be Eddie that came by yesterday because he lives down the road and he plays drums, and he reached out and took me to coffee, and then we, you know, et cetera and so forth. Yeah. But for me, it's just kind of that, like, one thing at a time. Do the next logical thing that'll get you closer to playing out. And I will say, because a lot of people will tell me, before we go to the next question, I know we have a couple of hands and we have one more submitted, but a lot of people will say, I'm introverted and it's very hard for me to go out and do that. Being introverted and being shy are two different things. Introversion is where you get your energy from. So introversion or extroversion. It just depends on, where does my energy come from. Shyness means you have trouble initiating conversations and talking to other people. Shyness we can fix. I can't fix where you get your energy from. Like, you're going to always be an introvert if you're an introvert, or maybe you can train yourself to be an extrovert. I don't know. I'm very introverted. I took a test. It was like 77% introverted, but people don't think so, because when I go out, I have these goals and I want to talk to people, but then I need to go back home to kind of like recoup my energy. But shyness is something I had to overcome. And I had to make goals for myself to overcome being shy, especially in public places when I wanted to talk to people, you know?
That's me.
That's you?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I feel that way too. And I think small steps, you know, like reference what Steven's saying, just go out. You know, you can even say, I'm going to just hide in the corner the first time, but just take a small step towards it. And then each time you can sort of, I've been trying to get out more in Pittsburgh because when I come home off the road, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't want to go out to any shows. But I'm like, man.
Wait. You're in Pittsburgh?
Yes, I am right now. So.
Oh my God, I'm in Pittsburgh.
There you go. So I've been trying to go to jams, and I've been trying to see some stuff around here, and get more involved in my local community. And so, every time I've managed to go out, it's been positive. I've seen some great music. I've seen some interesting scenes. I played. The guy just came up to me and was like, "You're playing at the Jazz Jam now," and I was like, "Okay," and it went well. And so it's always. It's like those little steps where I was like, I just have to get there,
But I guess I need to pick your brain because I don't even know where to go.
Okay, the Thunderbird. Let's go to Thunderbird Cafe or Club Cafe. Those are two great little clubs to start. Mr. Smalls is a third that always has some great local bands going on. So check out their websites and just go to the first thing that looks interesting.
Yeah, and we had a guest artist come on here, Jeff Clapp. Everybody doesn't know him. He was out of New Orleans. Really sweet guy, amazing player. I met him. Well, I first saw him at a jazz jam. I decided I was going to start going out to one of the jazz jams here in town on Sunday nights. The first time I went, I was not playing. First couple of times, I just sat back and listened. And the third time, I was like, okay, I haven't played jazz. All right, I'm gonna put my name in the hat. I'm gonna get up there and play. And Jeff happened to be in town, and Jeff is just like, he's a monster. He's amazing. It feels amazing. Such a unique style. Well, the guys in the band knew him, so they get Jeff up to play. And so Jeff is like playing, he's like playing on pipes on the wall, It's just like this whole vibe that he's got. And I'm thinking, who is this guy? And the next thought was, oh God, please don't let them call my name after this guy. And so it was like, he got done, silence, Steven, I'm like, son of a, But that was the first place I saw Jeff. I followed up with him later. He had been playing back at Rudy's, got to know him. We became friends. He's come here several times. He's been a guest artist. And it all just came from me deciding that I was going to not be an introvert anymore and not be shy and go to a jazz jam and get out and actually, play. And so, yeah, it's something I still deal with myself. So, we got another submitted question.
Yep. We have a question that Sean sent me, and then Chantel has a question in the chat, and then Ken has his hand raised. This is a question that Sean asks all of our guest artists. Let me pull it up so I don't miss it. Yeah. So he asks all of the guest artists. We have the same question every time. Okay. So now it's your turn, David.
Great.
He says, what technique or exercise that you learned as a beginner do you still use now?
That's like 50% of them. I still use a lot of warm-ups that I learned in high school marching band, like a check stroke exercise. I can show you some of these too. Let's see, stick control stuff. Still practice.
Yeah, show us one that you still use.
Yeah, so like the check stroke thing was like a marching band thing. I'll turn off this mic. Can you hear the drums okay on this one?
Yeah, we can hear it.
That was so we could all, the non-accents versus the accents was like a big thing, and it still is a big thing in my playing where I'm, with ghost notes. Where it's like the difference, you want a good difference between those little ghost notes and the big accents to give your the beats contour and things like that to make it interesting. But so that's a big one, and I try to do it. Relaxation is a big thing, which we didn't cover in marching band. It was a very tense, scenario with those check strokes. But now I'm working on it a lot with, using my fingers rather than my wrist, as you probably could see not a lot of like wrist motion, more with the fingers and the fulcrum, as you say, where you're holding the stick sort of right between your thumb and your forefinger, and you're using your fingers like that rather than the wrist. So I work on a lot of the finger control as well.
Very
just
cool.
To try to get that snap.
All right. Well, you said Chantel had one, and then Ken's got his hand up.
Yep. So this is in the chat from Chantel. She says, "I'm curious, when you play on stage, what is the place to really play and have fun playing and interacting with the crowd? I remember the shows I was going to see 30 years ago where the drummers probably didn't play or hardly played to clicks. The rhythm was much faster than on the album, and that's what was captivating. There was improvisation, and the shows now are just like the album."
Oh, awesome. Somebody who appreciates a show without a click. Because we don't play to a click. I count off to it, and then after that, it goes up and down. There's points in the show where, towards the end, where Cody's like, announces each person, and each person sort of has their little solo 8 bars or whatever. And so that's been a fun thing of late, is that I only get 4 bars, but me and the bass player get 4.
It's because they don't want everybody leaving, It's like
they don't. They're
how to clear a room, give the drummer a solo.
They're probably a little scared, but so that's been fun to come up with like something that. And usually I'm playing to the band. I've always been somebody who plays more to the band than the crowd, but and I'm trying to get them to smile. So I think the other day I just did like the fastest single stroke roll I could for 4 bars straight, and it was funny, and it was awesome. I don't know if it went over with the crowd. I was mostly looking at my bandmates. But,
who cares if they liked it? The inside joke worked.
Yeah, but there is room for improvisation, and especially that's cool about country is that, and with Cody's band particularly, is he gives everybody space to do stuff, and we're not to a click, and we're one of the few, bands that I've we've opened for bigger country acts, and they're all on a click, and there's a thing to it that's really consistent, but it's also kind of like, okay, well, I know what that show is, in a sort of way. I think if I played to a click, a lot of my challenge playing live would go away, because I'm the time is like fully in our hands. And that's a big responsibility that I enjoy. And if there was a click there, I guess the biggest worry is if everybody goes off the click, what do you do? But I like it, and I went back and forth on that. Like, man, our show would be so much tighter if we had a click. But now I'm firmly in the other camp where I really like the variation of it, and I really appreciate people who appreciate the variation. Some people want the same thing and want the album at the show. But I thank you for mentioning that you like it. That's awesome.
We have one song. We play acts, not to a click. It's just wherever Wes feels like, hitting it that night.
Yeah.
And we have another song that we've been working on, Border Lords, and the original. What's that?
I love your version of it, and I love that song. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great song. But the original speeds up like 10 BPM or something in the studio. Yeah. And which is a great feel, and Wes was wanting to recreate that, and we were trying to kind of like produce that feeling by speeding up 1 BPM every so many minutes. It was just like, and finally I told him, I said, how we can just do this is, we go into double time. Can I just turn the click off? I said, we'll get faster. I said, I'll let the reins go a little bit and we'll speed up, and it'll be natural and it won't feel weird.
Yeah.
And so they said, yeah, try that. And so never heard another thing about it. Because it's like, I can make that happen. I don't have to have a click here, guys. We can actually just be humans here and speed up a little bit.
The humanity goes away a little bit when you use a click. Man, I just watched, and maybe you guys have all watched these Jim Keltner videos.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
It's called Off the Record. And he's talking to his drum tech. And he goes off, on the click. He's just like, the ocean waves, nature comes and goes. It's always coming and going, but it's coming and going at slightly different path. Or Jack DeJohnette mentioned a dryer or washer machine going around. It goes around at the constant rate, but the clothes are falling at slightly different places as it turns them around. And that's like nature. That's human, and things should breathe and things should flex. Your heartbeat's not mechanical. So it was an interesting take on it, and one that I sort of buy into. We don't record to a click either, so we're sort of click rebels, I guess.
Well, and I told them, I said, look, you may notice while we're playing that we're not always 100% locked into that click. I said, because I actually don't care. I said, it's just a guide. It lets me know that we're there in that tempo. I said, if you want me to split it, I can do that. I'm happy to do that for you. But I think it's way more interesting if we push this drum fill or we pull this section, or, I think it's cool to go to a section and sit on the back of the pocket because it feels correct, So I told him, I said, don't worry if it gets a little skatey. We're still there. I said, if at any point you want us to nail it down and just do, I said, we could do that. But it's kind of was my way of telling them, like, I'm fine using it, but also I would like some room here.
Yeah, and the 70s records, that's why the 70s, that era, especially for me, the fidelity's amazing, the playing's amazing, and they let mistakes happen on records. And I love it. I love that. That's some of my favorite stuff, is to hear the speeding up or slowing down, or sometimes I don't even notice it because I'm just into the song and it feels natural.
Yeah. Ken, what's up, man?
Thank you, David. Thank you for today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I have been in and out of the room because I'm having a roof work done today, but this might have already been asked. But what was the difference for you from going from playing rock to country? Was there a big variance? And also, my second question is, growing up in the Northeast as a kid, there was no country music. It was just rock and roll where I grew up. And you hear these wild stories of the road life. So since you did rock and roll and country, is there a difference between rock and roll road life and country road life?
I think that all boils down to who you're on the road with. And also how, for me, I think things were wilder when I was younger and I didn't have kids. I never was like insane, but I definitely was drinking a lot more when I was in a band with the Heartless Bastards. It was just us, and I didn't have a family. Maybe my wife was in the picture, but it was more, it was part of the hang, and I'm trying to get away from that now without losing, a fun vibe. So but no, I think it just depends on the musicians you're with. I think any musician group can have tendencies to get crazy, and another group could have a tendency to all go to bed at 9. I think Hall & Oates, I heard a story about Hall & Oates. They always went to bed early. They weren't man eaters. But yeah. So as far as what was the other question besides the road life? Was the
So how hard was it to go from playing rock to country?
Oh, again, it's a big deal because the Heartless Bastards were a little more collective, and we talked a lot about our, we sort of formed the song together after the lead singer would bring in the main songwriter, bring in the chords, and there's some of that with Cody, but it's definitely a little bit more, like let's keep, there's someone else telling me at times more input than I had. I had more input in the Heartless Bastards as far as like song structure went. I think this, with Cody, it's a little more, we're serving the words that he's singing, and serving the song and getting in and getting out. It's not like a psychedelic exploration like it could be at times with the Heartless Bastards. So it's a different approach, but I think that is less about country and rock and more about just the group dynamics and how the songs are put together.
Yeah, I got since you mentioned Hall & Oates, I do have to give a shout out. I found this out a couple weeks ago. There's actually a number you can call, and It's a Hall & Oates emergency hotline. And I'm not joking here. Write the number down, everybody. It's 719
All right.
26 Oates, OATES. And you can call this number and you can push a button and pick one of 8 Hall & Oates songs.
Just hear them.
And it'll play it for you. There's a lady that comes on, and thanks you for calling the Hall & Oates hotline, the emergency hotline, to hopefully make your day a little better. And then sure enough, I called it and I was like, I just like knowing there's people out in the world that keep that phone number alive. And like, that's their thing every morning. It's like, is it still, yep, still going good. Hall & Oates emergency hotline still open.
Great idea. That's awesome.
Oh, it's fantastic. And I also didn't know, a keyboard player told me, a friend of mine told me Rich Girl was, I guess the story was, it was written about a guy that was, I guess as an insult, he was acting like a rich girl. And it was, from what he understood, it was one of the band members, one of their girlfriend's ex-boyfriends that he wrote Rich Girl about, which is actually about a guy that he wanted to, say was being girlish. What, I don't know. Anyway, that's the story I got there. Yeah, Ken, here's a little inside baseball information for you about David. I actually talked to him, about coming on this call, and he was out, having one of his wild nights, actually kind of letting loose, partying a little bit. It was about 5 o'clock, and both of us were sitting at separate tables alone. I was reading a book, and he was watching, I think, a game. And I saw him have one beer, and I think he went back for a second with his burger.
Big night. Big night.
Yeah, I had a salad, and then he came over and talked, and he told me I need to go take a nap before we play.
Yeah. There's a thing about the now where Cody is and how fortunate we are. But I was in a van for 8 years with the Heartless Bastards, and there were a lot of runs where we were driving 8-10 hours, and running in to make sound check at like 5 p.m. And you hadn't even had a chance to really go to the bathroom all day. So I don't take a bus for granted, having a bed there, coming in the morning, like I can get warmed up on a pad before a show. I can exercise, I can take naps, try to take advantage of all that, all the privileges.
Somebody asked us, they asked me, they said, can you hang out before the show? I said, sure, we'll go get some dinner. I said, but then I'm going to head back to the bus. About an hour and a half for the show, because I didn't want to say that's nap time. But I said I would bring you on the bus, but everybody's going to be laying down asleep. It's kind of quiet time for the band.
When my family comes and visits me, I say, well, okay, from about 5 to 6:45, I'm going to be eating dinner and taking my nap. So I'm unavailable.
Sorry, I can't see you, which is just hilarious to me that's
we're not keep up the party later, right?
Yeah, they're like, are y'all a party? And I'm like, yeah, no, not really. I don't think so. That sounds exhausting. I don't think I want to do that. But we did just run with a group, and that was their MO. God, they were hot. They were hot on it. Cocaine and whiskey for 3 days straight. It was sounded very tiring.
Yeah, no kidding. Do they have families, or are they like 20? 25?
No, several of them. One of them, I talked to him. He had a newborn. And yeah, it just sounded, I'm like, man, y'all can't do this for too much longer. Really just kind of like 3 or 4 year run time with this. You should slow down.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be careful out there. It's about, we used to say it's about buzz management. Now I sort of, because that's also ruin your hang and get you fired really quick. I'm in it for the long haul now, so I'm 47, so I'm trying to get cleaner. I think I have maybe most nights one drink after the show, but it took a long time to get here where, I'm like, well, if I want to keep doing this, I got to exercise, and I know it's not fun to hear, but
yeah, no, well, I was
just the party stories, but I do have those. But lately,
I'm the same way, man. We wind up in a town, and I take off with my backpack walking, and I'll just walk for a few hours and just get exercise in, and then make sure, But it's the same way, One of the reasons one of the guys didn't get hired that came before me was he got on the bus and started slamming Jack and Cokes.
There you go.
And that's not a cool thing with them. They're not okay with it, you know?
It happens a lot. Yeah, even Cody's, he's cutting back. He was a big Miller Lite guy. He's gone to Miller 64. So it's, everybody's thinking about it. We're all getting there. But it's also, I don't know, drummers especially, it's such a physical thing that you've got, as you get older, I think you have to be aware of that. If you want to keep working, I've seen a lot of old drummers that can't do it really anymore, can't stay on top of the beat, or can't play as tight as they maybe did in the past because they haven't taken care of themselves. And that, I want to keep going.
Yeah. But yeah, those that happens because there's so much time too on the road. There's when you're not playing and it's like, well, I finished at 9:30. Now what am I supposed to do? I don't want to go to bed. And then one thing leads to the other. They're like, hey, there's this bourbon room over here. And you're like, well, that sounds like a good idea. When really it's probably really bad to go over there. So.
Definitely, I a while ago with Cody, I was like, made a point not to be drinking before the show. And I think that was a good point, if you do have to, try to wait till after at least. So that the show is as good as you can make it.
And I try to build in habits during my day that divert me and give me things to do besides maybe extracurricular activities. Mm-hmm. So I've always got a book with me. And so anywhere I am, I can always just chomp into that book. And we were at one venue at a outdoor amphitheater, and it was after the headliner, and there were, I don't know where the women were coming from. There were a lot of them. They were in the hallway, and there's a lot of hollering, and there's a party going on. And I'm just like in the green room with the door closed, reading this book about, why we sleep. And I'm very interested in it. Yeah. Kelly's like, what are you doing? I'm like, no, this book is fantastic. I got to go back to the bus in a minute, but I'm definitely not doing all that.
Yeah. I mean, if this keeps growing, I don't have a drum tech yet. I'm not sure I want one because I really enjoy that part of the day when I get.
Okay, I'm glad to hear you say that, man. Because
tune and set them up, and I love that.
I used to rush through that. It used to be like an annoyance to me. I guess because I came up hearing about drum techs, and I just intuitively thought, oh, this should be something I don't enjoy, and especially the past few months, that's kind of my time where I get real aggravated if I have to rush through it. I get real aggravated. Right. So I make sure I arrive there early, and then I just take my time walking my drums up there. I set them, make sure everything's working. I check everything, and then I bring a book and I sit there and read until the rest of the guys get there.
It gives you a feel for the room too. Like you don't want to walk into that room for the first time when there's 5,000 people and it's a gigantic place. Like it gives me it lets me chill and get to know the place a little bit. It's like walking around town too. I want to do that. I want to sort of get a vibe. But I like that part of it. I don't know if I would give that part up. Maybe me and the drum tech could hang out together and do it together.
He's supposed to be teching, but you're setting it up and
they're just going to be my friend anyway. They're just going to be my fellow drum nerd that I get to hang out with.
You're taking the cymbal, like, hey man, sit down, take a load off. Let me do some stuff. Yeah, and sometimes you get to a show and you've gone through really rough roads and your gear is kind of, we got to a show a few weeks ago. And I mean, just like every lug on every drum was shaking loose. I'm like, man, did we go through Missouri last night? What happened? Like, I don't understand, And it's just, I got to take that time, talking to my kid about like, what did you get into last night? Did you go to the bourbon room? Come on, man. And I'm tightening the lugs. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that you enjoy that too. Because it's not something that I look forward to it every day, being able to kind of like go through that repetitive sequence of steps of unpacking my gear, putting it back in there, that kind of a thing.
Likewise. Yeah, our steel player is the same way because the steel is such a weird instrument anyway. So
it's such a weird
instrument. He doesn't trust anybody with his thing, even if he did have a tech. But yeah, so we're hanging. We're just up there hanging and talking about last night and just taking our time, and it's nice.
Yeah. Very cool, man. Well, I tell you what, if we have any last questions, Grant, there may have been one that came in submitted. I don't know. I haven't been checking that. But if anybody has a last minute question, you can throw your hand up. All right, David, where are you going to be in the next couple of weeks so everybody can know just in case they're around where you're coming?
Yes, I believe. Let's see, it's on my phone, of course.
Yeah, let me look up Master
So I don't
Tour
give you
here.
so I don't give you the wrong. I think I can log on to it online, but I don't want to give you any wrong information because honestly, I only look about a couple weeks ahead. Because our schedule is pretty last minute as far as bands go, and I don't want to get my hopes up or have any expectations that
Yeah, y'all do run a last minute booking type of scenario.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're at the Orion Amphitheater this Friday in Huntsville, Alabama. Then we're at Daly's Place Amphitheater in Jacksonville on Saturday, May 20th. May 21st, we're at the Orlando Amphitheater in Orlando. And then we're pretty much off until June 9th, Jacobs Pavilion in downtown Cleveland. And then we're outside of Detroit at the Michigan Lottery Amphitheater at Freedom Hill, Sterling Heights, Michigan. And that's June 10th.
Nice. Now, where can everybody kind of find you online if they wanted to keep up with you? If you do any socials, some people do not, which is totally fine.
Yeah. I have social accounts. I don't post very much. So this is a whole nother topic we could have gotten into. But I'm sort of old school that way. I think it's healthier for me. I think, I started to look at other players and feel bad about myself. So I just stopped. Except for the Dave King Instagram. That one is amazing.
Oh yeah. Did you follow his YouTube series years ago?
Rational Funk.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant.
If you haven't watched Rational Funk, by the way, it's a deep dive on music and drum nerdery done by one of the best jazz drummers out there right now, Dave King.
Drum videos. Yeah, it's great.
And it's completely off the wall. He's got a left of center sense of humor. To me, they're a masterpiece, and I think that Netflix should have picked it up. But anyway, it didn't happen. So
I think so too. But yeah, so I'm on Instagram. I don't know my accounts offhand, honestly.
Oh no, that's fine. They can search you, man.
I'll shoot you. I can shoot you a text with the actual handle.
Okay. If anybody's wondering, just hit me up in email or whatever, and I can send you his links. So, well, very cool, man. Thank you for taking the time to come on and talk. And
I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Hopefully, I'll run across you here pretty soon on the road. We got to hang a little bit.
Shouldn't be long. The woods are never gone for long out of our lives. So.
Well, cool, man. Hang on here, and we'll chat before we get out. But everybody, Grant, when's the next call, man?
It's Thursday at 3 p.m. It's a community hang call.
Yeah, I will not be here for that one. I will be playing Kentucky this week. So anybody, if you're in Bowling Green or Hazard, Kentucky, or Nashville, I'll be at Brooklyn Bowl in Nashville on Saturday. So, but I'll be in Bowling Green on Thursday, Hazard, Kentucky on Friday, and then Nashville on Saturday. So you can check the Steelwoods website for where all those venues are and whatnot. Community home hang with Grant on Thursday. So be sure to make that. Those are always fun. And so, yeah, man, thanks, David. And we'll see everybody on the next call.